Good morning. Thank you for joining me for this session of Status Hearing, where we're using body work and breath work to gently ease ourselves into the day to hopefully create a foundation for a good attitude for the day and help us to manage stressors that come along as well. So I really believe that when we start the day mindful of this and start the day with an intention to manage, we can't control what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen. But what does come to us, if our eyes are open and we're paying attention, we can respond more appropriately. And that is the purpose of this program. Let's start on the back with the diaphragmatic breathing. And the purpose of the diaphragmatic breathing is to help you just become a little more aware of your body. We're concentrating on the breath right now. So we inhale and fill the belly, exhale, feel the belly fall. Now for the first couple repetitions, you may want to do this passively. If you're thinking to yourself, well, what the heck am I supposed to be feeling right now? Then I would encourage you to do it a little more actively. Inhale and deliberately fill your belly and exhale and pull the belly down. Inhale, fill, exhale, pull the belly down. These, because you will probably find that your stomach, your belly, will begin to get fatigued. So I'm going to count that as 2. 3. 4. So pulling down, I'm starting to feel the lower part of my abdominals. Also starting to feel my waist. 7. 8. And you can continue to do that very deliberately, or you can make it a little more passive and slow it down, whatever feels comfortable for you. But as you exhale now, begin to feel the rectangle of your core. Rectangle of your core. The top of the rectangle for now is bordered by the shoulders, and that forms a 3-dimensional rectangle. We have one dimension facing the ceiling, the bottom of the rectangle being the pelvic floor. So both hips and the pelvic floor. So we have a rectangle facing the ceiling. We have a rectangle facing the feet. So don't disregard the idea of a top and a bottom to your rectangle. And we also have a rectangle facing the camera. And now when you breathe, can you collapse the rectangle toward the floor? And inhale and fill the rectangle. So notice when you collapse the entire, you have to engage the chest. There are a lot of reasons why many of us stop engaging the chest. The muscles in the front of the body may be so tight that you just can't open the chest anymore. We may have carried or felt emotional trauma and the chest and the throat. If we're not mindful of these things, it's very easy to shut down. And that's one way of coping. The problem is, particularly as we age, that begins to have a ripple effect, most specifically on our mobility, but I believe as well on our mental and emotional health. Simply because if these feelings were felt once and we've locked something down to prevent ourselves from feeling them again, we're restricting something that was once there. So that's just to say, in the larger picture, we're beginning to be mindful of collapsing the entire rectangle. It's not going to be perfect. It's just something we become a little more aware of. However, you may start to feel when you think about the rectangle, you think about the rectangle that faces the feet, and there's a rectangle facing the head. It may be a little easier for you to flatten your shoulders toward the floor because your focus is flattening the bottom horizontal line of the rectangle. And by the same token, your focus is on flattening the bottom lower line, or bottom horizontal line of the lower rectangle, end of the rectangle, sorry. So take about 3 more breaths here. When you pull the navel in, maybe pull the breastbone in and feel the pressure on the floor. Open and fill. Exhale, pull down. One last time, open and fill. Exhale, pull down. Now, we've been talking about energy lines. 2 days ago, I introduced rear lateral lines. So let's check in with those rear lateral lines. Lateral being to the sides, rear being along the back, and the energy line is directing down. So when I flatten my rectangle, not only am I flattening the bottom horizontal line of the rectangle facing my head, I'm also lengthening down through the bottom lateral lines of the rear of my body, through the rear lateral lines, the RLLs. So inhale, relax everything. Exhale, flatten the bottom horizontal line, flatten the rear lateral lines. And you can feel that rear lateral line engaging all the way down your thigh. Inhale, fill, exhale, engage the rear lateral line all the way down the thigh. That's probably going to help you feel the bottom horizontal line grounding a little more firmly. It's probably going to help you feel the backs of your thighs, the backs of your gluteal muscles. And if you can't feel that, begin to just do some gentle lifts. Now, if I'm emphasizing my rear lateral lines, those gentle lifts are going to be pressing into the outer edges of the rear lateral line in my calf and the outer edges of the rear lateral line in the bottom of my foot. So it goes all the way down. As I exhale, I can engage both of those lines from my shoulders all the way down to the very end of the bottom of my outside 2 toes. And what does that feel like? It probably helps you to engage more of your body in this movement. Can you bear down into your feet? So now what I'm doing is directing the lines down, tilting my hips toward the backs of my knees, bearing down into to the bottom of the outside two toes. And now take a nice deep breath, and as you exhale, we're going to lift up into bridge pose, just as a way of emphasizing what those rear lateral lines feel like and how they enhance body movement in general, but also how they can enhance your ability to focus on what you're doing. So I could be up here and I could be planning dinner and I could be thinking about what I have to do for work, and that's okay. However, I could also be checking in with my body, checking in with the rear lateral lines, sliding my shoulders, the rear lateral lines behind my shoulders, sliding my shoulders via the rear lateral lines toward my hips, sliding my hips via the rear lateral lines toward my knees, sliding or bearing down with my knees into the outside edge of my heel on the bottom of my foot, and then sliding the heel toward the outside bottom of the two toes. Bottom of the outside two toes. Inhale, fill the belly. Exhale, pulling everything back down to the rectangle. And we can go back to the integrity of the rectangle as well. Maybe getting a little bit tired. Another benefit of being mindful of these rear lateral lines is going there when you're getting tired. Oh, my lower back is hurting. All right, firm up through the rear lateral lines. Send them down and notice how you get a little burst of energy from that. And then take a nice deep breath here. As you exhale, you're going to gently pull down with the feet. Pull down with the feet as you drop one vertebrae at a time. Keep pulling down with the feet. Keep pulling your hips toward your heels. Keep pulling down. Keep pulling down. Keep pulling down. Pull down with your pelvic floor. You can do it. You can do it. You can do it. And relax. The purpose of that was to encourage you to use the rear lateral lines to stretch your vertebrae apart. And isn't that amazing? Maybe you felt something, maybe you didn't. That's all right. We'll be doing it more, so keep coming back. So continue to breathe here, and I'm going to have you extend both legs and actively flex the feet. And I want to now introduce the idea, or reintroduce the idea now of front medial lines. So we had RLLs. Yesterday, I introduced the idea of FMLs. FMLs are going to start for now at the collarbone and run down to the two pubic bones. So collarbone to the two pubic bones. The two pubic bones are the bones that form the front of the pelvic floor. So collarbones to pubic bones. And then pubic bones to the inside of the top of the knee. Inside of the top of the knee to the inside of the tip of the ankle bone, the inside ankle bone. And then from there, we're going to extend out through the big toe and the second toe. Now you may be thinking, what happens to the third toe? As a matter of fact, there are two nerves in the third toe, one of them directing one way and another directing another way. So in fact, you have 2.5 toes in these lines, 2.5 toes that are part of one set of lines, 2.5 toes in the center that are part of the front medial lines. So as we exhale again, let's focus on the front medial lines. fill the belly as we exhale. Now, the legs are straight. This is going to be more difficult. It's going to be more difficult to pull your navel toward your spine. So you really need to focus on the FMLs, the front medial line. Inhale, fill, exhale. Now you might be thinking, oh, I got to flatten out my shoulders and go to your front medial lines. You may find yourself tilting your big toes toward your face, everting your feet. Emphasize the front medial lines. The front medial line presses that big toe away from the surface of the foot. So it pushes from the top. And you may be finding, oh, geez, my hips are tight. They probably are. Most of us have tight hips. How do I compensate for that? Well, I can reinforce my front medial lines along the lower belly, along the groin, along the inner thighs. This is another traditionally weak area of the body. When we sit on Western furniture, the knees tend to splay out to the sides. The inner thighs and groin area and the abdominals get weak. The outer front of the body, we'll talk about that later, gets tight. So you may find it very difficult to press your big toes away from your body. Let's do two more. Fill, exhale, direct down through the front medial lines. And now, go back to that idea of the rectangles. So I talked about one rectangle before, one united rectangle. We're going to break that up into two rectangles. One on the left side, one on the right side. So as I exhale, I'm directing down through my front medial line, directing down through my rear lateral line. On my left side, doing the same thing, again, exhaling, front medial line, rear lateral line. On my right side, and how can I coordinate those two efforts? And what can it do for me? And for now, we're just going to leave the arms. Whatever the arms want to do is great. But as I exhale, directing down through my rear lateral lines, directing down through my front medial lines. Now, well, gee, you said you were pushing down with the top surface of your big toe and your second toe. Well, I'm also pushing down with the bottom surface of my pinky toe and my second toe toward the center. Now, I don't know about you, but the longer I hold my feet flexed like this, the more lactic acid I'm feeling building up in my thighs, in my calves, in my ankles, in my feet, in my hips. I'm getting pretty tired. We've held this for quite some time, Beth. When are we going to stop? My point in asking you to hold this a little bit longer is, again, to induce a little bit of stress. What's happening right now as the pain is building? You might be getting antsy. You might be thinking, I'll do anything to make myself more comfortable. I hate this. When's she going to quit? Why did I show up today? Go back to your rear lateral lines, direct down. Go back to your front medial lines, direct down. Breathe deeply, actively direct down. We're going to do 2 more of these. Breathe deeply, relax. You can relax on the inhalation, actively breathe down. You can do this 1 more time. Breathe deeply and actively reach or press down and release. Just let the body relax, let it soften. We're going to counter that exercise with Pavanamuktasana. In yoga, this is known as wind relieving pose. And, well, I will describe what we mean by wind relieving, but it should be kind of evident. As we exhale again, go back to your rear lateral lines. Flatten your left, the outside of your left rectangle, the outside of your right rectangle. Can you flatten the bottom outside corner of your left rectangle and your right rectangle? And keep that downward effort running into the backs of the thighs, the outer thighs, into the backs of the calves, around the outer corner of the heel, and down the bottom of the foot. Now you might be getting tired. It might be very easy to let go of your shoulders right now. Remember that rear lateral line, it goes all the way down to your heels. If I flex my feet, I'm going to imagine that I'm pulling on the line. Flexing my feet actually helps me pull my shoulders away from my ears and lengthen my neck. Now I'm going to turn my attention to my front medial lines, and I'm going to switch the hand hold here so that the arm closest to me, whichever arm I see in front here, tends to work a little harder. As I switch to my front medial lines, my pubic bones can pull the chest away from the collarbones. I can feel a lovely stretch. And then my knees can pull the inner thighs away from my pubic bones. My ankles can pull the inner calves away from my knees, and the ends of the tops of my big and second toe and the half of the third toe can pull the ankle up toward the ceiling and out. So fill the belly. Feel your belly pushing your thighs away. Exhale. Direct 2 sets of lines downward. Inhale. Relax slightly here. Exhale. Inhale. Engage. Inhale. Rear lateral lines downward. Inhale. Front medial lines downward. Inhale. Both sets of lines. Inhale. Both sets of lines. Inhale. Last time. Both sets of lines. And gently release. Extend the legs. Let the body soften and settle. And go into the body. Feel inside the body. Imagine that your calf is a tube
I like to think of the inside of my body like Hogwarts Castle. My attention is Harry walking through the halls of the castle, and the castle surround him on all sides, the castle halls. And I'm feeling the walls and the floor of the castle halls. I want to feel the inside of my body. In the area of my ankles, I feel some sensation, some fatigue. As I move my attention into my calves, I personally feeling lactic acid remaining. Lactic acid is a waste product. It builds up when we contract muscles and we don't let them go. And we can't breathe hard enough. It doesn't build up as quickly when you're breathing hard because the oxygen takes helps you convert it. But if you're not breathing hard, it builds up and that's what begins to burn. I'm feeling tremendous burn in the insides of my forearms. So the purpose of this part of status hearing is to feel inside your body. I suspect you're feeling some kind of sensation, that burning. Oddly, the burning still hasn't subsided in my forearms. The burning still hasn't completely subsided in my ankles. I'm just going to pick one spot where I feel sensation. It could be burning, it could be heat, it could be a pulse. And now I'm going to focus in on it like a microscope. I'm going to increase my objective lens and start moving the lens closer and closer to that space, to that feeling, whatever it is. See if I can't get right to the center. Right to where it all begins. One point, just a pinpoint. And then attend to my pinpoint. Pay attention. What does it feel like? Is that pulsing? Is that pinpoint painful? Does it spread waves? Circular waves, or does it move in one direction? Does it move at all? Turn your attention back to your breath. And see if it's a little easier to breathe diaphragmatically, just naturally. When we come into the body each day, we reinforce one possible response to stress. And that's not jumping out at the stressor. That option is turning in toward the body and noticing what's there. I suspect the last few moments as we've turned in and felt the inside of the body, you found your mind and your body going a little more silent. Might not have been perfect, but a little more quiet. It doesn't really matter what you focus on. The point is your presence. And that is immensely powerful in any situation, in a stressful situation, in a situation where you're asked to think on your feet, in an etiquette situation where you're not sure how you should act. Going inside, even for a second, brings you to the moment. And that's when ideas come. And it's not something that you have to do. You already know how to behave in public. If you're asked to think on your feet, you've probably done it before. It might be stressful for you. And when you go inside, what you may feel is stress. What you may feel is an increased heart rate. But we've practiced with that, and we'll continue to practice with that. Because that's not the be-all, end-all. That is feeling. And as you've probably seen just now, the feelings go away. They don't stay forever. And perhaps this won't be the perfect time. You'll go into your body. Well, it didn't work, Beth. You had an option right there, though. You had something you could do. You could go in. You could turn away from the stress for just a moment. Go in and feel it. Or go in and silence your head. And then turn out again and reevaluate the situation. The purpose of status hearing is not the purpose of status hearing is not to give you tight abdominals. But a nice little side effect that I have found is that it has given me tight abdominals. More importantly for me, it has taught me to manage stressful situations so that I don't feel obligated to respond right on a dime. I can step back. And that is a tremendous source of strength, of contentment, of future tranquility. We'll talk more about that in later classes. We've reached the end of our time here. Go ahead and wake yourself back up. Bring yourself back to the room in whatever way feels good. I like to stretch my arms above my head and make my arms and legs as long as possible. For me, that just feels delicious. Whenever you're ready, gently roll to one side. Give yourself a moment on your side to allow some blood to come back to your head. And then gently press yourself back to an upright position. Thank you, as always, for joining me. I hope this was useful for you. I will be back this afternoon at 12 o'clock for a 45-minute strength class. We'll see how those go. I will also be back tomorrow at 7 and tomorrow evening at 9 p.m., 4 p.m. status hearing. So I hope you can join me for some of those. Thank you again and have a wonderful day. Namaste.